In my opinion, one of the neatest components about the history of music in Macon, we all know about Capricorn Records and the Allman Brothers Band. But what most people do not understand is that the genesis of music in Macon really occurred in large part thanks to Little Richard.
Our journey starts with Rock Candy Tours, a tour company that specializes in telling the stories of the early pioneers of Macon's music scene.
I am actually a child of rock and roll. My family got into the music business in the 60s with a man named Otis Redding here in Macon, Georgia. And then that progressed into Southern rock, where my uncle Phil Walden discovered and managed the Allman Brothers Band, and my dad also got into the music business and discovered and managed Leonard Skinner.
To tell the rest of the story, we will have to start in the beginning.
Contest, Jimmy and Jovita dancing to Little Richard and Tutti Frutti.
It was 1955, and a rising star was found in one of the most unlikely places. A dishwasher and part-time entertainer at Ann's TikTok Room, Richard Penniman, who you may know as Little Richard, had just hit the charts with his song Tutti Frutti.
With Little Richard, he was such an inspiration to so many people. I mean, he was this strange, unique artist to come out of somewhere like Macon, Georgia during the time and the era in which it was, a very deeply divided, segregated South. And so it really was an inspiration for a lot, that if Little Richard can make it, maybe we can too. My Uncle Phil, he fell in love with the music, and he started as a music fan. And so one of my favorite stories to tell on a Rock Candy tour is his first encounter with Little Richard. He was just a young boy. He was standing on Macon's Cherry Street, and he looked up, and walking down the street in a full red suit, twirling a red parasol, was none other than Little Richard. And by then, Little Richard had broke. He had Tutti Frutti on the radio, and he was getting, his success was really starting. And Phil was so starstruck that all he could manage to say to Richard was Tutti Frutti. And Richard looked at him and said, "Good booty," and kept walking along. And I mean, Phil was hooked at that point.
Hey, let's dig Little Richard and really turn it on.
Baby, 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 come along with me. We're gonna scoop a dive in the deep.
My uncle was just a young boy when he first heard Little Richard's music, and he truly fell madly in love with rhythm and blues. Race records is what they called it at the time. So while he was in college at Mercer University here in Macon, Georgia, he began booking black bands for fraternity parties and just really being obsessed with this music that nobody had heard before.
I'm coming to you on a touch road. Good loving, down a truckload. When you get it, you got something. So don't worry, 'cause I'm coming. I'm a soul man. I'm a soul man.
The years went on, but Phil Walden's passion for this new music only grew stronger. While in college at Mercer University, Phil, along with his brother Alan, began booking artists for fraternity parties. He was constantly looking for acts that played the music he had learned to love. Music history was changed forever when Phil met with a rising star of soul music outside the Douglas Theater.
In the late 50s, early 60s, this is where Southern Soul really started making its mark here in Macon. WIBB radio station had a weekly talent show here hosted by a guy named Hamp King B. Swain. And the star of this talent show that went undefeated was a guy named Rockhouse Redding. Rockhouse Redding, we now know, is Otis Redding. And so my uncle Phil Walden was a young student here at Mercer University, and he couldn't go into the Douglas Theater because this was the black theater, and this was during times of deep segregation throughout the city. So he would tune into the radio station down the street in his car, and then when the show was over, he'd run up here for his chance to meet Otis. Eventually, as the legend goes, these two were able to connect, and they became not just artist and manager, but also business partners. And they began booking other R&B artists through Phil Walden Artists and Promotions, which eventually grew into Redwall Music Group.
The relationship between the Waldens and Otis was more than a business arrangement. It was a deep friendship.
The thing that I'm probably the most proud of is during those Otis days, during that time that Southern Soul was there. You know, they were the first integrated office staff here in Macon. They were the first time that people were seeing these white guys and black guys working together and equally, and for the same common thread. I mean, it was just such a groundbreaking concept that music could bring audiences together. And it wasn't without their flack. I mean, they had serious threats against them, and they were in danger at times. And but they kept going, and they kept using music to change the world, really.
To have that much influence, no, I did not know that we had all that much influence. I knew we were just working hard, you know. And people asked me the question, did you ever think that you're making history? And I said, hell no, we didn't, because we were too damn busy working.
The Waldens were pioneers in many ways, and it kept them extremely busy. Things got even busier when Otis went up to Memphis and got a record deal with Stax Records. Alan saw a culture at Stax that he really liked.
I had the first integrated staff and the first integrated owned company too in Macon. But when I walked into Stax, they were all integrated. It was a totally integrated company. But I saw black and whites drinking out of the same bottle. Well, I had never seen that in my life. You know, that was just, wow. Can I have a swallow? You know? Oh, man, you know, people were people. We didn't think about it. We didn't think about color and all that in those years. We were all just people trying our best to get ahead.
Pain in my heart, treating me cold. Where can my baby be? Lord, no one knows.
Otis Redding was a special artist. His love for everyone and his craft came through in everything that he did.
Let me be. Where can my baby be?
Otis was a person who loved to perform. It makes a lot of difference. You know, if you're going out there just to get the money, you're not going to have what we call the real soul of it, you know. If you're going out there and you're singing it because you love singing, then it comes across a totally different way. It really reaches to your soul. Man, he could make a friend out of racists or anybody. You know, I mean, once he flashed that $1 million smile on you and shook hands with you, you knew that you had met somebody.
When a man loves a woman, can't keep his mind on nothing else.
It wasn't just Otis. There was Percy Sledge with his hit "When a Man Loves a Woman." It was Sam and Dave. It was Ike and Tina Turner. Even Etta James had a moment with them on their agency. It was an amazing network in which they created for black musicians. And again, this deeply divided time in the South. And they became one of the largest rhythm and blues booking agencies, second if only to Motown.
I got black people paid royalties when record companies used to not pay them royalties. They'd steal money left and right, you know. Little Richard had Tutti Frutti royalties gone, you know. So, I mean, that's how serious it was. They mistreated the black artists horribly. And so here we come in, we're white guys, and we're standing up for the black people. And we're not taking any manunu, you know.
We're talking about the South in the 60s, which is still very segregationist. Phil was, basically sort of almost like an outcast. He and his brother were working with pretty much exclusively with black artists. A lot of people like Sam and Dave and Percy Sledge and to a lot of people within the country club said Phil was kind of like, persona non grata. So that, until things started happening and money started being made and money started coming into the town because of taxes that were being paid and people who were living there that were making money and spending money.
Phil was commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Army, and he had to serve in Germany as part of a deferred enlistment so he could finish college. Alan carried the business while he was away. When he got back, he was greeted with a wonderful surprise.
What you want, you got it. What you need, baby, you got it. All I'm asking,
He went up with Otis to do the Otis Blue album. That's the first album that Phil was back home, and it's probably, to me, one of Otis's greatest masterpieces. He really, I call it Phil's welcome home present because Otis showed him what he learned. And, by then we had I've Been Loving You Too Long and Respect. Both of those songs were cut in the same day. You talk about a day in the studio.
I've been loving you too long to stop now. You were tired and you want to be free. My love is growing stronger.
With Otis, man, this man just loved to sing. He did to two words, gotta, 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 He gave new meaning to those words. It's happy expression now, Man, I gotta, and it's something that you really want to do, and Otis could touch you like that.
Despite his fame, life was difficult for a black artist at that time.
Otis Redding taught me a new way of living. He made me love him so much that one time I was disgusted with my own people, white people were mean to the black men in those years. Not mean, hurt you mean, One time with Otis, we in Alabama, and I look out the window, and the guy just got a damn shotgun, and he's letting the window down, fixing to stick a damn shotgun, shoot us in our car. I said, Otis, shotgun. And Otis looked over at the thing, let down the window, and hollered, "Hey, man, it's Otis Redding." Guy pulls his gun back in. "Otis, what you doing in Alabama?" Next thing I know, we're sitting in Fain parking lot, Recorders parking lot, drinking a beer together. They were going to shoot us 30 minutes earlier.
Even getting a hotel was a challenge.
In the Little Richard days, Twiggs used to go pre-register in the Holiday Inn, and then he would have the van park a block or so away. And so once he got the room keys and everything, then he'd signal for the van to come on in, and they'd come in, and they were instructed to run to their rooms as fast as they could. And the managers behind the desk would be going, "Wait a minute, I didn't know." Too late, man. They already registered, and they in their rooms, and you can't throw them out of the room,
At times, even the police were someone to be feared.
We come on into downtown Barnesville. There's Otis's brother, Rogers Redding, and the station wagon full of musicians pulled over on the side of the road. Not Rogers wasn't there, but his car was there. And I get out and I said, what's going on? And they said, they took Rogers to jail. And I said, for what? And he said he had an expired driver's license. Okay. I said, well, let me go over there, and I'm like slapping my face, trying to sober myself up as fast as I can. And, you know, I go walking in and choosing my footing very well and making sure. Well, I get in there, and the sheriff is literally in what they call wife-beater shirts. Okay, I mean, like something you see out of the movies of the old true South, you know. No, nothing on but that gall shirt. I come in, I just tell him I want to get Rogers Redding out of jail. And he said, who in the hell are you? And I said, I'm Alan Walden. He said, well, what you doing with all these bad words? Okay. And I go, I'm the manager of this show. We're a traveling band, and we just played a gig up in Griffin, Georgia. We're trying to get to our hometown, which is Macon, Georgia. And I said, look, man, let me just bail him out of jail, and if you'll let us get to hell out of Barnesville, I will never come back here again. I make you that promise. We go to get outside to get in our cars, and they put a squad car in front of us and one behind us. And they led us to the county line 15 miles an hour, hoping one of us would make a break, cut out, and take off. And later on, when I saw Mississippi Burning, that movie where they kidnapped those three guys, the hair on the back of my neck stood up because I had lived that situation.
For many years, Alan had turned down several invitations to judge a blues competition because it was held in Barnesville. He is a man of his word, and he intended on keeping it. One day, his friend gave him a call.
The mayor of Barnesville wants to make such and such date Alan Walden Day in Barnesville, Georgia, and he would like for you to come over here and receive the key to the city and a document apologizing for what happened to you. And so I said, well, I will if they'll give everybody that was in the car with me one, too. I said, you know, they all had to sit outside and wait on me that whole time. And I said, I'd like to bring 3 or 4 of them with me. I want them to get the key to the city and the proclamation, too, you know. So I did. I took the 2 fan club people that were in the car with me that night over there. And we all got the keys to the city, and big response from them. I've never been treated so much like a star. He gives us all the key to the city and the proclamation and everything, and everybody's starting to walk off stage. He said, wait a minute, Alan, that don't go for you. I got something else for you. And I turned around and stopped and looked at him. He said, I want to give you a key to the jail in case you ever get locked up. I said, I don't know if you should. I might go down there and let everybody out when I go home.
The Walden family had a special relationship with Otis. It was a relationship full of love and respect. They traveled together often. Alan was in charge of Otis's travel, and on a couple of occasions, he received fake phone calls, which he described as cruel, telling him that Otis's plane had crashed. And one time, the plane Otis was supposed to be on crashed.
I'm sitting in front of the TV at home. I went on home from work that day, and I'm sitting at home watching TV, and reports coming up, and they're flashing all the names on the screen that have died, you know, and it's getting close to the R's, and I'm getting nervous as all get out, and the phone rings, and my mother says, I said, Mama, get that, please. And she said, Alan, I'm busy cooking. I can't get it. You got to get it. And so I go over and very disgustingly, hello, you know. And he said, I bet you thought I did, didn't you? And I said, man, I'm sitting here waiting on the R's to pass over the screen with your name on it. What in the hell happened? He said, that damn disc jockey Dickie Doo made me miss my airplane by 3 minutes. He said, otherwise I would have been on that plane.
Sadly, on December 10th, 1967, Otis would die at 26 years old in a plane crash. And it just pulled the rug out from underneath my family. By now, it's not just my uncle and my father, but my grandfather was also working, and they loved him like their brother and son.
When that call came in that night of Otis's, I knew it was real. I mean, you naturally hope that he's going to be a miracle survivor somewhere, you know, that you can't give up hope, you know. You just keep praying and praying and praying. He had also always been very superstitious about insurance. He didn't want anybody to own any life insurance on him because he said, you might get mad with me one day and have me killed, and you might need that money more than me, you know. And we laughed about it a lot, but he was serious. It didn't want it to happen, you know. He called the insurance agent the week before his death and got him to put all the policies in effect that the guys had been presenting to us for over a year. And they came down to pick up the checks, and Otis asked them, you know, said, okay, if I walk out this door tonight, am I covered? And they said, you are. Well, because of Otis flying in a private airplane, the life insurance would not pay double indemnity, so they bought an accidental policy to make up for double indemnity. And we signed the papers on, I think, Wednesday. Otis was killed on Sunday. He was rejected by the accidental people on Monday.
Otis's death was an unbelievable tragedy for everyone, but no one took it harder than the Walden family themselves. They lost their best friend, business partner, and a man they regarded as a member of their own family.
There for a while, I didn't know what I wanted to do until Phil and I had a good talk. And we decided, okay, well, he would take Arthur Conley and I would take Percy Sledge. And that way we would each have our own act to account to ourselves, and we'd do everybody else together. I did real well with Percy's career, you know. I booked one tour that he made over $500,000 on, you know. First black man ever admitted to a white hotel in South Africa. First black man to ever perform for an all-white audience in South Africa. The Kings came out of the jungles to see Percy Sledge. Broke every attendance record ever set in South Africa. And they made a movie about him in South Africa. Percy had some things happen in his career that were unbelievable, you know. I wanted to move him to Macon and get him a house out on the outskirts of town like Otis had, and have him around me where I could really work with him heavily, you know. And the day before he was to move in, the damn rednecks torched his house. And he already had his family ready to come and everything. We had a guest house out in the back, which was going to be for his mother, and had a big hedge all the way around it, so you wouldn't actually see him except driving into his driveway, you know. And but they torched it, and they meant for it to go. There was obviously a trail of kerosene or diesel fuel all the way into the house. Man, you talk about a hard phone call for me to have to call a man and tell him that, man, yeah, they burned your damn house down. And now that one discouraged me. I even called the FBI trying to get somebody to really get on this case, you know. Nobody's ever been called. You know, and you know that whoever did it has told some other people somewhere, you know. They just didn't investigate it because he was a black man.